Hey y'all, Tanny Cooks here. Today I'm going to show you how to make some delicious green tomatoes. Now, we all know one of the favorite Southern ways to prepare some beautiful green tomatoes is to bread them and deep fry them. But today I'm going to show you another option that is just as delicious. So, let's get to cooking. These are my beautiful green tomatoes from my local grocery store. I usually grow them every year, but this year I didn't. And then I have my scallops that are 60 to 80 count per pound. This is a 2-pound bag, so I'll probably just use 1 pound. And we're going to saute these up with some garlic and some seasonings like Old Bay, ground black pepper, garlic powder, and onion powder. So the first thing I'm going to do, of course, is thaw out my meat. You can thaw out your scallops in your refrigerator overnight. I didn't do that, so what I'm going to do is now take my frozen scallops, place them in a plastic baggie, and dip them in a bowl full of cool water and let them sit for a few moments so they can thaw out as I do other tasks. I don't want to thaw these in the microwave because they may thaw out too fast and actually cook in the microwave and get rubbery, so that's not what I want. So they're in the cool water off to the side. So now I have a bowl with white vinegar, and this is what I'm going to use to clean my green tomatoes. So I'm just going to let them float there for a few moments, and then I'm going to scrub them with my vegetable scrub brush and just admire how beautiful they are. You can see these are palm size, like a big baseball. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to cut up my fresh garlic. Of course, if you have minced garlic in a jar, you can certainly use that. Although I am using granulated garlic or garlic powder, I do like to use fresh or minced as well. I find it just gives an oomph to the flavor that I like. So I cut off the ends of my garlic and then I cut it into small pieces. And I don't mind the pieces not being perfectly even because these are going to saute down in my pan, which is completely fine with me. Next up, I'm going to chop up a yellow onion. This yellow onion I'm chopping into wedges, which are a similar size and shape as the green tomatoes that I'm going to do. So I made sure that my green tomatoes were very dry. I dried them off with a paper towel. And the next thing I'm going to do is use a small paring knife to cut the core and the top of the tomato off. So really it's mostly the top and a little bit below it. If you have any pieces on your tomato that are discolored or sunken in, just cut them off. It'll be completely okay. So I have another soft spot. I have that brown spot. I'm just going to cut them off and use the remainder of my tomato. So now to get the wedges that I want, I'm going to cut them in half and then cut each half into wedges. I find this is a nice size for this dish because the tomatoes, when we saute them, will stay firm, but they're going to be soft. So they're going to be soft with a firm texture, if that makes any sense. But this is your food, so you can cut it however you want to, but I like the wedge sizes for my tomatoes and my onions. So next up, what I'm going to do is show you, it's easier to cut your tomatoes into wedges if you put the flat side down on your cutting board, and there you have it. So now that I've done that, I'm checking my scallops, and I can feel that most of them are thawed out, which I want. So I just open my bag and I'm giving them a gentle rinse under cool water. So any of the ones that still feel frozen, I'm just rinsing them off more to let them thaw out. But now that they're all thawed out, I'm drying them off with a paper towel on the top and bottom of them because we're going to saute these. So we want them to be very dry before we put them in our hot pan. We don't want them to steam. We're going to saute them. And look at this beautiful, beautiful scallops. And then we have our vegetables ready to go. Very simple ingredients and not a lot of them. So this is a delicious dish to make. So I am going to season my scallops. I have a little bit of my Old Bay seasoning left. You can use the Cajun seasoning of your choice. This will help the color as they cook and also the flavor, of course. So now that my pan has been heating up for a few moments, I'm adding some extra virgin olive oil, just a couple of tablespoons in the bottom of my pan. And the first thing I'm going to do is saute off my tomatoes. So these tomatoes are going to saute in this pan, and then we're going to add in our onions next to let them cook. And then after those two cook down for a bit, then I'll add my garlic. I don't add my garlic now because I don't want it to burn or scorch. So in this pan, I am using a silicone spatula to make sure that all of my tomatoes and onions get coated with the olive oil I put in there. You can notice a couple of pieces of my green tomatoes are actually pink. That's because they were on my counter and they were starting to turn red or ripen, so that happens a little bit. So I've decided to add my seasoning now because adding seasoning to a hot pan will allow that seasoning to bloom, and the fragrance is so amazing and delicious. So I added my garlic powder, onion powder, and black pepper. The amount of the seasonings you add will be dependent on the amount of green tomatoes you have. So I would start off just adding a teaspoon or two, and then judge for yourself by tasting the tomatoes as they cook if that is enough seasoning, and then you can add more. I started off with a tablespoon of garlic powder, onion powder, because I like them. For my scallops, I am using ghee. This is clarified butter. It has 120 calories per tablespoon, which is on par for other oils and fats. I use a couple of tablespoons. I'm using ghee because I don't want the milk solids in them to burn and brown. So the milk is what's in butter, and that part is taken out to get the ghee. So when my ghee has warmed up, I add my scallops with my seasoning. You don't want to overcrowd your pan, but I did just go ahead and add my whole 1 pound of scallops to that pan. And while that's going, I'm letting my tomatoes and onions cook on a medium heat. I want these to cook through and soften before they brown or darken on the outside. So that's why I'm not cooking these too fast. So as they cook down, I can see the color change in them, and I went ahead and added my garlic. I had about a tablespoon of roughly chopped garlic, or you can add minced garlic if that's your preference. And then continue to stir this, and as you notice a color change, you can use a fork to pierce one of the pieces to see if it's actually tender or soft. And of course, you can taste a piece as well. So my scallops are cooking. These are the small scallops. You certainly could use the large ones in this recipe if you prefer, and I have, but these were on sale and that's what I bought. So all of these scallops are not going to get a crusted brown side on them, and that's okay because we're going to cook them further when we mix them with the tomatoes. So my tomatoes are still going, and it smells so good in here. So I decided to turn off the heat for my scallops and add my scallops to my other pan with the tomatoes. And look at that, y'all. Now, looking at it now, I really could have added all 2 pounds of the scallops to these tomatoes because it was that good. But I didn't, so you can make the choice of what's best for you. So give this a gentle stir, and each of these components are going to come together very quickly because they're already cooked. So I placed them in a big serving bowl, and look at how amazing this looks. Now we have green tomatoes sauteed, we have onions sauteed, but I want to add a little bit more flavor and seasoning. So I'm adding more Old Bay, and I'm adding parsley, dried parsley, and I'm giving it a squeeze of lemon. Lemon goes great with seafood, and it is pleasant with these tomatoes as well, and it adds a nice pop of bright color. So if you've never made green tomatoes any way other than deep frying them, I encourage you to give this recipe a try. Thank you so much for watching my video. Please subscribe to my channel and watch my other videos. I have playlists showing a variety of soul food dishes I like to make, as well as seafood recipes. So be sure to check that out. Thank you so much.